Hi everybody, welcome back to my corner of the internet, Lowry Crafts. I have got a regular podcast episode for you today, and I've got a couple of things to show you that I haven't shown before on here. And I've got something to show you that hasn't been seen for a while on here. What do I want? I want to start with this. Firstly, thank you to everybody who has watched my most recent video, my everything I made in 2025. I hope you enjoyed, if you are a new viewer, debuting this channel, I guess, and the things that I like to make. And for anyone who's over the last few weeks left a kind comment on one of my videos, I very much appreciate it. So thank you. I, at one point in time, I believe somewhere on the internet, said that I was going to finish all of my whips, or most of my whips, before entering 2026. And that has not happened. And actually what I have done instead is create more. So I have no finished objects to show you today. Just haven't been knitting on anything that was close to being finished, I guess. I do, however, have 3 whips to show you, and I guess an acquisition, although I'm kind of going to do the acquisition at the same time as I do this first whip. So I, after saying that I wasn't going to start that I was going to finish my projects to go into the new year, I then actually cast on new things. And one of those things was a test knit that I applied for Knitsfordays DK. So I'm test knitting for her at the moment. And it is the Maude Sweater. It looks like this. Isn't it beautiful? It is a drop shoulder cable or alternating rib cable sweater. The deadline is... When am I going to upload this? Probably the weekend of the deadline. So the deadline is the 18th of January at the moment, I believe. I don't know if I'm going to be completely finished, but I am confident that I will be finished enough to give reliable feedback. I'm not going to comment on the pattern too much because it's a test knit. So the point is to, find mistakes if there are mistakes, not that there particularly are in this pattern. It's so far pretty well written, pretty clear. I've only got kind of minor things to communicate with the designer. What I would say about this so far, and it's not something I think is going to change when the pattern is published, is that I found it pretty hard to meet gauge. So Knitsfordays is a very tight knitter. And I've test knitted and knitted her designs before. So I know this. Although this time actually I only went down 0.5 millimeter needle size rather than a full millimeter. However, what I think my problem is with this one is the cables are really cinching in my knitting, and when I blocked them they didn't grow as much as I think the designer's cables will have grown. So we're using different yarn compositions. I believe the design originally calls for a sock yarn held with, I think it's Alpaca by Falklands, held with a strand of Alpaca. If that's incorrect, I will put it on the screen, what the pattern actually calls for, but I think that's it. On a 5 millimeter needle for, I think, a 22 stitch gauge across. And I assumed I would meet that with a 4 millimeter needle, but I didn't. I was vastly over. So I had to go up to a 4.5 millimeter needle, and that meant that my row gauge was, through my row gauge, slightly off. I will communicate that with the designer, but I haven't had that problem before. Normally I just go down a needle size or whatever, and that's fine, but I think it's because of the cables. However, I may find when I block it that it's actually completely fine. Who knows? The weight of a garment tends to help, I think, like changes your gauge a little bit more than with a swatch. And this is quite a hefty garment at the moment. So I am actually using, let me get my yarn, and then this is essentially my acquisition as well. I'm using Sandnes Garn Sunday and Alpaca 1. This is in the colour 8521, which I have used before, but in the linen, in the Sandnes Garn Lina. This, I can't remember the colour name, but I'm going to show you the two of them next to each other. It's a really beautiful combination. This is Isager Alpaca 1, and I think they go really, really well together. They're slightly different in shades, but it's really not that noticeable. It's a very kind of soft marl. It's actually almost not noticeable at all in the garment. I'm holding the Sunday double. So my gauge issues also meant that I, while I was initially intending to hold a fingering weight with a lace weight, which I think is what the pattern calls for, again, I might have misremembered that completely. Because I had to size up to a 4.5, I just felt that it was way too gappy. So I ended up holding the Sunday double, and it's a lace weight, right? There's no point in leaving it out, and I'd already bought it, so I thought I'll include it. That has made my fabric quite dense, although I'm not mad about that, I don't think. I'll show you the fabric again. So you can see there's a little bit of movement to it, but it's hanging quite, and I've got the needles on the end, it's hanging quite stiff. And I think that will change with blocking when it lets the cables and the rib relax. That's my only hesitation really with the choices that I have made. Otherwise, I'm very happy with this, and I'm excited to see what it is like when it is done. The collar is done with twisted rib, and we're going to ignore that. That's the inside. You don't need to see that. It's just so neat. Look at that. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with that so far. The cables are really straightforward, 2x2 cables. Really easy to knit. Don't need a cable needle for them. I think I'm going to block this before I'm completely done with it, because I suspect it will grow quite a bit, particularly width-wise, as everything relaxes. And because it's a drop shoulder, I don't really have any idea of how long I need to knit the sleeves in order to make them a full-length sleeve. So I think I'm going to give it a mid-project block and see how that turns out. I have other bits of feedback, I think, on this pattern, but I'm going to hold off on sharing that until I have shared it with the designer, because it's a test knit. That's the point of the project. But so far I am really enjoying this, and I'm so excited to wear it. And I think it's going to be a really warm piece of clothing, and it will get me through these cold winter days. So that is my first work in progress. Yeah, don't know why I buffered there. My first work in progress and my acquisition as well. Something else I did actually want to say about my maple sweater test knit is that I think I changed the pickup rate. There's not a rate in the pattern, but I think I've picked up notably less stitches than the pattern calls for at the moment, which is fine. It's a test knit. However, I was slightly concerned that I was not going to be able to get it over my head. Thankfully, I can, but it's a sewn bind off. It's a folded and sewn down collar. So I was really nervous when I finished doing that last night, but I can actually get it over my head, thankfully. The next whip I wanted to share with you hasn't been seen on this channel for a little while, but it is my Maude Sweater by Coco Amour Knitwear. this is where I'm at the moment. So I think the last time I showed it, I had not joined the 2 front pieces. I have now. See if I can show you some of the texture on the front, because I'm really enjoying that. So I'm kind of halfway through this lace repeat at the moment, which I have already done on the back. So I'll show it to you on the back. It's really beautiful. This has gone on pause for a little bit because I am trying to get this test knit done, or mostly done, by the deadline. But I want to pick this up again when I have finished that, because I would really like to get some wear out of this. And I think as we approach spring, it will be a really good piece of clothing to have in my wardrobe, because it's got these lace panels, and I think will just make it a little bit lighter. It's also 1 DK weight that I am holding. I'm not holding it with anything. It's merino, it's Falkland Islands merino, it's not alpaca or anything, so I think it will also be better for slightly warmer weather and a bit more temperature regulating, whereas the jumper I'm knitting at the moment is going to be really warm, I think. I don't particularly have anything else to say about this other than that it's kind of back on my needles again. I had some trouble with the back lace panel when I did it. It requires you to have a specific number of stitches, and in the rows before you kind of make adjustments depending on which size you're knitting to make sure you have the right number of stitches. I think I'm knitting the size 2, and I didn't have the right number of stitches after I'd done those adjustments, and I couldn't work out what I had done wrong, and I kind of had to do adjustments within the lace panel to get down to the right number of stitches. So you do decreases along these side panels. It's a drop shoulder pattern, but it has decreases within the main body to shape the drop shoulder, which I quite like. I think it will stop there being a load of bulk under the arms, so I'm quite excited about that. However, now that I'm doing the front panel, I think that actually I just made a mistake on the back panel. I think for my size, it calls for you to either increase or decrease by 1 stitch, and I think I did the opposite of whatever it says in the pattern. So there we go. However, other than that, really enjoying it. It's really nice to have something that's a bit potato chippy that I can kind of work through in sections and kind of put it down, pick it up after I do sections, and sort of work on it in bits. I'm really enjoying that. I'm slightly nervous about the depth of the armhole. Obviously I've not finished the front, but I'm slightly nervous about the depth of the armhole. But it's a drop shoulder, so I think it'll be fine. It doesn't need to be, it's not sitting right here at my shoulder, right? It's sitting further down, so it's fine if it's not as deep, I think. I've mentioned it a million times in these videos, but the yarn I'm using for that is hand-dyed Falkland Islands merino. It's a really lovely like jeans blue. It's a tonal colour, so it has some variegation, but not a huge amount. I'm not alternating skeins or doing anything like that in this project, and I found that with all the different textures, it just blends in really nicely, so saves me a hassle, saves me some faff. The next thing that I have to show you is a bit of a spontaneous cast on that I wanted because I was going on a train journey and I wanted something to knit. And it's really, really boring. I am knitting a scarf. This is where I'm at so far. It's literally just a self-drafted stockinette scarf. It's just a tube in the round. I added a row of pearl bumps on my cast on. Let me show you there. To match my penny gloves. So last year, at the start of the year, I knitted a pair of penny gloves by Petite Knit. In this yarn, this is Majo Garn merino in the colour anemone. I've also talked about this yarn ad nauseum on this channel. because it was yarn that I used for my first ever finished garment, and I reclaimed it. The garment just wasn't right for various reasons. I've talked about that before as well. I wanted a scarf that matched my penny gloves and was kind of quite loose and drapey, and that I could just knit mindless stockinette in the round and get something wearable at the end. So that is what I am doing. I'm knitting it on a 4mm needle, which is making it quite, I guess, gappy. I'll show you again. I guess it doesn't look that bad there. You can't really see too much through it, but you can kind of see, I think, that it's quite a loose gauge. But I'm not that fussed about that because it makes it go by faster than if it was on a 3 or a 3.5. And it's obviously, when it's finished, it's going to be double thickness because I'm just knitting a tube. So it's not going to kind of compromise the warmth, I guess. And I don't live anywhere that's like particularly freezing. We don't really get minus temperatures very often. So it will serve its purpose. And I think it will look cute eventually with my penny gloves. Although I was looking at my penny gloves the other day when I was wearing them, and they have been worn a lot, which is a good thing. But they are really pilling. They're really rubbed up. I need to tidy those up a little bit. And I keep catching them. I don't know if anyone else finds this, but the penny gloves have those sort of pearl ridges around your cast on and cast off edge. And the pearl ridge around the thumb, I always catch that in my coat zipper, and it's sort of like plucking the threads out of my glove, which is really annoying because otherwise I would have made a matching scarf for no good reason. But it's getting some yarn out of my stash into a useful and wearable project, so I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to have a nice big scarf that I can wrap myself up in. I think I'm going to have enough meterage to make at least the length of the Vienna scarf by Petite Knit-ish, which I think is about 160, 170 centimetres, which is taller than me, so loads of length, which is fabulous. That was a really quick update. I don't have much else to show you. I am just really focusing on that test knit at the moment, and then after that I would quite like to do a bit of a finishing my finished whips with me, finishing my projects, sort of knit along, I guess, vlog kind of video. So let me know if you would be interested in that kind of content. Probably going to do it anyway. There are a couple of other projects that I haven't shown you that are works in progress. I've made no progress on them. I'm telling myself that I'm not allowed to cast anything new on at the moment, and I'm not allowed to cast new things on until I've cast something off. There are things that I would like to knit this season, but I'm going to try and finish a couple of things first. I have 5 whips at the moment, which is unusual for me. I don't normally have quite that many. But that is everything I had to share with you today. Please tell me what you're working on at the moment. If you've got any New Year projects that you have cast on, please tell me. I will live vicariously through you. I will see you again very shortly. Bye everyone.